The first light of dawn spills across the Giza plateau, washing the desert in molten gold. From far above the horizon is a canvas of sand and shadow, the Great Pyramid rising from it like the spine of some titanic creature buried beneath time. Its limestone casing blocks, worn but still defiant, catch the sun's first fire. The morning wind carries fine grains of dust across the plateau, whispering in a language no one alive can speak. The camera glides closer. The shadows stretch long and precise like the fingers of a cosmic clock. For over 45 centuries, this monument has faced the same rising sun, holding its secrets within a heart of stone. Every explorer, scholar, and dreamer who has come to Giza has asked the same question. What lies inside? The hook drops low and deliberate. For over 4,500 years it has guarded its secrets, until now. Recent months have shaken the world of archaeology. Deep within the pyramid far below, where tourists tread, scientists using a revolutionary form of cosmic ray scanning muon tomography have found something extraordinary. The technology designed to read the movement of subatomic particles as they passed through solid rock revealed a void no one expected. A chamber hidden in plain sight, invisible to centuries of human eyes. It is vast, unmapped, and sealed. The data shows it lies above the Grand Gallery, a place no known passage reaches. No records mention it. No ancient text explains it. And yet it exists, carved by hands that lived and died more than 4 millennia ago. Theories have already begun to spiral. Some imagine it as a forgotten burial vault for treasures untold, untouched, since the reign of Khufu. Others whisper it could be a ritual space perhaps never meant to be entered again. More radical voices suggest it might predate the pyramid itself, an inheritance from an earlier unknown chapter of human history. The camera circles the pyramid slowly, the sun now high enough to bathe every weathered block in light. The silence is absolute until the sound of a heartbeat begins to rise beneath the narration. One question refuses to let go. Why was this chamber sealed, and what waits inside? The desert breeze swells. In the mind's eye, the pyramid ceases to be stone. It becomes a vault, a lock, a warning, and as that thought settles, the heartbeat stops. The image shifts, dissolving into black and white archival footage. Men in linen shirts and pith helmets, their hands and faces caked in dust, dragging crates from the sand. Pickaxes clink against limestone. A single camera, its lens trembling slightly, captures the moment as history is torn from the ground. We begin to move toward the pyramid's north face, the place where all great entrances begin. The grainy footage flickers, merging with the modern aerial view. The gap between past and present collapses. Somewhere behind that weathered facade, in a darkness unbroken for thousands of years, the unknown waits. And now, for the first time in our history, we may be about to open the door. The Great Pyramid did not rise in a day, nor in the tidy sequence the textbooks like to present. Around 2560 BCE, during the reign of Pharaoh Khufu, the plateau at Giza became the stage for what remains the largest and most enigmatic building project in human history. Khufu's reign is sparsely recorded. No surviving statues larger than a few inches tall, no lavish inscriptions boasting of his accomplishments. His name endures mainly because of this pyramid, as though his legacy was meant to be carved not in words but in silence and stone. Mainstream Egyptology tells us it was a tomb, the ultimate resting place of a god-king built over 2 decades by tens of thousands of laborers, But even this official story is riddled with contradictions. The central sarcophagus in the so-called King's Chamber lies open, its lid missing, as if whatever or whoever once rested there was removed long ago. And unlike most Egyptian tombs, the pyramid's interior walls are bare. No hieroglyphs, no prayers to guide the pharaoh into the afterlife. Only the cold geometry of granite and limestone. Then there are the anomalies in the architecture features that don't align with the function of a tomb. The grand gallery's soaring corbelled walls, the enigmatic air shafts that seem too narrow for ventilation yet point precisely to certain stars, the hidden relieving chambers stacked above the king's chamber like a stone puzzle. These are not the careless oversights of ancient builders, they are choices. Deliberate exacting and still unexplained, legends about sealed chambers within the pyramid stretch back centuries. Arab chroniclers in the medieval period told of hidden halls and treasuries of the ancients sealed off to protect both the contents and the intruder from harm. Some wrote of metallic doors that rang like bells when struck, others of secret guardian serpents or spirits said to punish the unworthy. While historians today dismiss these as allegory, there's an unsettling consistency in the stories, a sense that what lies beneath the stone is meant to remain undisturbed. The first European explorers who crawled through the pyramid's narrow passages in the 17th and 18th centuries were captivated by the idea of hidden spaces. Their journals, written in careful copperplate, record moments when they felt sudden drafts of air in sealed corridors or tapped on walls that returned a hollow sound. Yet these tantalizing clues were often omitted from the official accounts sent to patrons back home. It was as though certain discoveries were quietly set aside, too uncertain to publish or too dangerous to share. By the 19th century, with the rise of Egyptology as a formal science, the focus shifted toward precision measurements and cataloguing, but even then whispers persisted. In 1837, Colonel Howard Vyse, infamous for blasting through stone with gunpowder, recorded in his private notes mention of a passage abruptly ending in worked masonry, the surface of which differs from the surrounding stone. This reference never appeared in his public reports. Other expeditions made similar offhand remarks about blocked corridors or suspicious voids, only for these to vanish from the official record. The pattern is difficult to ignore. Century after century, explorers stumbled on hints of spaces beyond known maps, yet somehow these hints never became facts. Then in 1924, a British surveyor working under the Egyptian Antiquities Service sketched a floor plan of the upper pyramid, chambers for internal reference. The drawing was crude, annotated with measurements and personal notes. But in one corner near the area above the Grand Gallery was a shaded rectangle labelled simply, "Unaccounted void possible cavity." No excavation followed. No mention of it appears in later surveys. The sketch disappeared into a private collection and was forgotten. Decades later, a researcher combing through a deceased collector's archive found the map rolled into a bundle of unrelated papers. The ink had faded, but the lines were still clear, and the void it marked sat in exactly the same position where modern muon tomography would nearly a century later detect a sealed chamber. If this was coincidence, it was extraordinary. If it was not, then the question becomes, why did no one pursue it? And why, for all the pyramid's fame, does its most complete map exist in a forgotten folder in a private archive? The voices of the past grow louder when patterns emerge, when old whispers match new evidence. The feeling is not unlike the shifting of sand in the wind, briefly revealing a buried stone. Once you've seen it, you can't unsee it. Now the age of guesswork and gunpowder is over. The search for the hidden spaces within the Great Pyramid has moved into a new phase, one that doesn't scar the stone, but instead peers through it. Cut to the present. On a scaffold rising against the north, face a team of scientists carefully align a rectangular frame of sensors. These muon detectors, sensitive enough to read the faint rain of cosmic particles streaming through the atmosphere, are designed to see what no human eye has seen in thousands of years. Piece by piece, they build the apparatus a modern instrument, born of particle physics aimed at an ancient riddle. The wind catches a strand of cable and whips it like a snake. One of the scientists glances up at the pyramid's vast wall, its blocks stacked with a precision modern tools can barely replicate. Somewhere inside, beyond corridors no one has walked. In recorded history lies the void marked on that secret map. Soon the stone will have to give up its answer. It begins not with shovels or chisels, but with a rain, an invisible, ceaseless rain, that has fallen on Earth for billions of years. From the heart of exploding stars, from the cataclysmic furnaces of galaxies, high-energy particles called muons streak through space at nearly the speed of light. They pass through the upper atmosphere splinter into showers and pour down on us by the trillions every second. We cannot feel them. We cannot stop them. But with the right instruments, we can see them. Muon tomography is, in essence, the art of catching cosmic ghosts in the act of passing through matter. When a muon hits dense material, granite, steel, even a mountain, it slows or scatters. Lighter material lets more of them through. By measuring how many muons arrive from different angles, scientists can build an image not of surfaces, but of density itself. The result is a ghostly X-ray of the solid world. It has been used to map the lava channels inside restless volcanoes, to hunt for drug tunnels beneath borders, and to glimpse the outlines of long-lost temples buried under jungle canopy. But never, not once, has it been turned on, one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world. Until now. The scaffolding clings to the Great Pyramid's northern face like a temporary parasite bristling with delicate black panels and coiled cables. Each sensor chilled and calibrated to extreme precision counts every muon that dares pass through the ancient stone. A technician in a sun-bleached cap checks the data feed, scrolling down his tablet rows of numbers that mean nothing to the untrained eye, but to him each fluctuation is a whisper from the pyramid's heart. Days pass. Then weeks. The detectors remain still, as statues their vigil uninterrupted by the scorching afternoons and the cool, silent nights. The pyramid has seen centuries come and go, but never has it been watched like this, dissected not by human hands, but by the deep time debris of dying stars. The first image takes shape slowly, like a Polaroid bleeding into existence. The known passages and chambers appear in pale relief, exactly where they should be. The grand gallery, with its steep incline and 28-foot ceiling, is clearly outlined a vein of low-density space cutting upward through the denser stone. But then something unexpected emerges above it, a shadow where no shadow should be. It is not a tunnel, not a narrow shaft. It is vast larger in volume than the grand gallery itself, and perfectly hidden within the pyramid's upper reaches. No entrance connects it to known passageways. No record, ancient or modern, speaks of its existence. The scientists check and recheck their calibration, convinced at first that it must be an error. Yet every run confirms it. The void is real. Its shape is unsettling in its precision. Unlike the rough cavities sometimes left in ancient masonry to reduce weight, this space has symmetry. Flat planes, clean angles. It is not random. One structural engineer examining the data insists it could be a relieving chamber, a hollow meant to reduce stress on the stone below. But others point out that such chambers exist elsewhere in the pyramid and are always much smaller. This, says one archaeologist, is deliberate, and it was meant to be hidden. The debate ignites immediately. Some dismiss it as a curiosity, structurally important but culturally irrelevant. Others are bolder, calling it the most significant find inside the pyramid since the 9th century. A few, careful with their words but unable to hide their excitement, note that its position aligns roughly with certain celestial features as though it were placed with astronomical intent. Media outlets catch wind of the discovery. Headlines shout about a giant secret chamber, and reporters camp outside the Giza plateau. But within the team, the atmosphere is cautious. They know the data is solid, but an image made of particles is still an image, not an excavation. And inside the pyramid, the law forbids any new drilling. Whatever lies inside must remain sealed, at least for now. Then, as the world speculates, the scientists quietly begin a second phase. This time, detectors are positioned not just outside the pyramid, but within, in the Queen's chamber, and along the ascending passage, places where moons can be measured from new angles. The goal? Refine the map, strip away uncertainty, and perhaps reveal hidden details of the mysterious void. Weeks later, the new scans reveal something no one expected. Behind a dense wall at the far end of an obscure passage, just beyond what's known as the choke point, a narrow section too tight for equipment and barely wide enough for a person to crawl through, another void appears. Smaller than the first, it is shaped almost like a cell, rectangular, isolated, perfectly concealed. Its position seems purposeful, as if guarding something or someone from ever being reached. The engineers are divided once again. Some claim it could be a construction cavity, a byproduct of the pyramid's layered design. But others see a different pattern. The smaller void lies in precise alignment with the larger one above, as though the two are connected in intent, if not physically. This, says one physicist, his voice low as if speaking too loudly, might undo the discovery. Isn't random architecture. It's a message written in stone density. What that message might be, no one can yet say. But the implication is clear. The Great Pyramid is not a fully known structure. Not in its passages, not in its purpose. And if there is one hidden space, there may be more. The instruments keep collecting data, the muons keep falling, and the images keep sharpening, but the pyramid keeps its silence. Whatever lies behind those blocks has waited for 4.5 millennia. It can wait longer. As the second void's contours come into focus, the question that began with a faint shadow on a scan now becomes something heavier and infinitely more tantalizing. The stone has begun to whisper back, and this time the voice is not faint. The desert night was still when the first blows fell against the pyramid's northern face. It was the year 820 AD, and the moon was a thin, cold blade over Giza. Caliph al-Ma'mun, ruler of the Abbasid Empire, had come to Egypt with more than soldiers and scribes. He brought a hunger for secrets, older than his faith, older than the stones themselves. The Great Pyramid had loomed over the sands for 4,500 years, and no man alive could say what lay inside its heart. Al-Ma'mun was determined to change that. The chroniclers describe the scene in blunt strokes, his men attacking. The masonry with iron tools prying loose blocks that had not been touched since Khufu's masons sealed them in place. But the pyramid did not yield easily. Days turned into weeks, and still the stone resisted. The labor was brutal. Sparks spat from chisels echoing inside the crude passage they forced into the ancient face. It was then, some claimed, that the strange things began. According to one fragment preserved in an Arab manuscript, the workers would halt at times straining to hear something beyond the scrape of their tools, faint rhythmic sounds as if blocks were shifting deep within the pyramid, far beyond their reach. Some swore it was the sound of stone grinding against stone. Others whispered it was a voice low and deliberate, as though someone or something was moving inside. The legends only grew darker. One account, copied generations later, tells of a torch that guttered for no reason in the still air of the tunnel. A second torch carried by another man flared to life, unbidden its flame, bending not with wind, but toward the darkness ahead. When they pressed forward, there was nothing, just the black mouth of the unfinished tunnel and the weight of thousands of tons of stone above. But Al-Ma'mun pressed his men harder. He was not a man to be swayed by superstition. Finally, their crude shaft broke into a narrow stone passage, the descending corridor. This was the first time in over 40 centuries that living eyes had seen the interior of the pyramid, and yet when the caliph and his men explored, what they found was nothing. The grand gallery rose before them, the king's chamber lay open, but it was empty. The great red granite sarcophagus inside held no body, no treasure, only dust. No inscriptions marked the walls. No gold gleamed in the torchlight. The pyramid, for all its majesty, was hollow in every sense that mattered. The caliph was enraged. Chroniclers say he rewarded his men with coins, claiming they had found hidden treasure, but the truth, whispered only in confidence, was that the reward was paid from his own purse. The pyramid had yielded no riches, and yet some of his workmen muttered they had not been alone in those dark chambers. One diary fragment attributed to a scribe in Al-Ma'mun's retinue describes a blocked passage the caliph ordered abandoned. "We could hear the stones sigh," he wrote, "and a dim light like embers glowed between them, but the wall was stronger than our will." Whether this was metaphor or a genuine claim, no one can say. The scribe died on the return journey to Baghdad. His notes end there. Historians today debate the accuracy of these tales. Were the voices in the stone simply the shifting of ancient masonry under stress? Were the strange lights tricks of the flame? Or were they embellishments, stories told to add mystique to the caliph's failed quest? But there is one detail, ignored for centuries, that now seems impossible to dismiss. The tunnel Al-Ma'mun abandoned, that stubborn wall he could not breach, lies almost directly in front of the location revealed by modern Muon scans, the vast hidden chamber above, the Grand Gallery. It is as though the caliph came within meters of the discovery, only to stop just short, separated by a barrier he could not understand or overcome. And in the 9 centuries that followed, no one tried again. The pyramid stood silent, guarding its secret in the same implacable way it had for millennia. But the echoes of that ancient intrusion linger in the Egyptian night. Even today, guides, leading visitors through the narrow, rough-cut shaft known as Al-Ma'mun's Tunnel, tell their own variations of the story. Some say you can still hear faint knocks from beyond the walls. Others swear that on windless days the torches burn with a strange sideways lean toward the blocked end. Modern science has little patience for curses, but even the engineers who now study the pyramid tread carefully in that passage. They know too well where it ends and what lies just beyond. In a makeshift control tent beside the pyramid's north face, a very different kind of expedition is preparing to finish what Al-Ma'mun began. The tools are not chisels and hammers, but carbon fiber drones barely the size of a man's hand, each one bristling with cameras, lights, and sensors. The plan is to send one through a gap so small it will have to fold its own arms to pass, slipping like an insect, into the unlit space beyond. The team speaks in low voices, not because of fear, but because the weight of history presses in on them. The last time anyone tried to reach this space, the world was ruled by caliphs, and the distance between science and superstition was paper thin. Outside, the wind lifts sand across the plateau, the same wind that scoured the tools of Al-Ma'mun's men 12 centuries ago. Inside the tent, the micro-drone's lights blink to life, cold white and unflinching. The engineers know they are standing at the mouth of a story that began in darkness with strange sounds in stone and a ruler who would not be denied. But where? Al-Ma'mun stopped. They will go on. And if the old legends are true, they will not be alone there. The first thing the camera sees is nothing at all. Not darkness like the desert night outside, which is softened by moonlight and the distant glow of Cairo. This is a darkness that feels physical, as if the air itself has weight and color, swallowing the cold beam of the drone's LEDs before it can travel more than a few meters. The micro-drone slips through the hand-carved opening. No larger than a child's fist, its carbon fiber body humming with the quiet whir of rotors. Behind it, the world of the living, the engineers, the cameras, the filtered daylight falls away in an instant. The feed is live. On the monitor, the entry gap shrinks to a pinprick of pale stone, then vanishes completely. The only sound is the faint whine of the motors tinny through the speakers, like a mosquito in a cathedral. Inside, there is no floor in the traditional sense, only a slope of dust and fine grit undisturbed for longer than recorded history. Every particle stirs reluctantly as the drone drifts forward, each puff of displaced air settling in slow motion. The silence is total. So total, in fact, that the engineers back in the tent unconsciously lower their voices as though afraid their own words might echo into the void. Even through the feed, it presses on the ears, an absence so absolute it feels alive. The corridor ahead is wrong. It's narrower than the known passages of the Great Pyramid, and the walls. The walls are smooth, not the roughly dressed limestone blocks of the King's Chamber or the sloped, corbelled walls of the Grand Gallery. Here, the stone looks poured as if cast in a single piece. The lights pan across the surface, revealing a faint sheen, almost metallic, though the analysis overlays insist it's limestone. Still, it reflects strangely, not a sparkle, but a soft, oily glow that shifts with the drone's movement, as though it's holding the light before letting it go. "Pause there," one of the archaeologists says, leaning toward the screen. The pilot halts the drone, adjusting the camera to sweep the surface again. Nothing. Then something. At first, it's just an irregularity in the stone, a ripple or fault line. But under the drone's infrared filter, the wall blooms with ghostly shapes, faint markings invisible to the naked eye. They are neither clear nor uniform, like something caught halfway between geometry and script. The engineers swap filters. Ultraviolet shows nothing. Infrared brings the shapes back, faint but undeniable. "They're not tool marks," murmurs the epigrapher. "Too precise," another voice cuts in, the Egyptologist brow furrowed. "They're not hieroglyphs. The form is wrong. The sequence is wrong." A third, the linguist, almost interrupts. "Unless it's earlier, proto-hieroglyphic, or something that predates known Egyptian writing entirely." No one mentions the other possibility, the one that doesn't fit into any neat academic category, that these marks are not writing at all, but something else, something that was never meant to be read. The drone advances slowly, almost reverently, its lights picking out more markings along the corridor. They are spaced in uneven intervals as though following a rhythm. In some places they cluster like constellations. In others they vanish entirely, leaving long stretches of smooth, unbroken wall. The archaeologists argue softly over the feed. Could this be an unfinished chamber abandoned by Khufu's builders, a private corridor for rituals? Or, and here the word hangs unspoken in the space between their sentences, is it older than the pyramid itself? The drone approaches a bend in the corridor. The camera tilts, catching a glimpse of something beyond, a darker space where the walls seem to fall away. The sheen on the stone is stronger here, like moonlight caught in still water. Then movement. Not ahead, but in the signal. A flicker. Static blooms across the monitor, just for a heartbeat, then clears. The pilot steadies his hands, guiding the drone forward. The static returns more insistent this time, crawling over the image in thin black lines. Signal degradation, one of the engineers mutters, checking the telemetry. Stone densities higher than expected. The archaeologist shakes his head. No, it's not the stone. The feed clears again. The drone hovers at the threshold of the bend, its lights casting long, sharp-edged shadows into the unseen chamber. Infrared mode is still active. The markings on the wall nearest the bend are denser now, almost tangled like threads pulled tight. They seem to curve inward, drawing the eye toward the dark space beyond. The pilot advances. The camera passes the bend. For an instant the image is crystal clear, a vast chamber unlike any in the pyramid's known architecture. The walls are too smooth, too seamless. No joints between blocks. No visible ceiling, only darkness swallowing the light. And in the center of the floor, something low, square, and perfectly aligned with the chamber's axes. Before anyone can comment, the feed jumps. Static floods the screen in jagged bursts. The telemetry goes blank. "Hold it steady," the pilot says, tapping controls. "I'm..." Losing a sharp, high-pitched tone cuts across the speakers. Not a mechanical error, not feedback. It is too steady. The sound lasts exactly 2 seconds. Then the feed goes black. The pilot freezes headset still on. "I've lost it." In the tent no one moves. The wind outside stirs the canvas walls, but inside it is as still as the corridor on the monitor. The engineers scramble to re-establish the link, sending override commands, cycling frequencies. Nothing. The drone's GPS registers it still inside, but no data comes through. One of the archaeologists, the oldest, leans back from the screen, eyes fixed on the last frozen frame, the chamber's perfect geometry, the strange low object at its heart, the absence of any dust in its immediate radius. "Cut the power," he says quietly. "If it's still listening, we don't want to disturb it." No one asks what it is. The room is silent, except for the faint hiss of the dead feed, the ghost of static filling the space where the image used to be. Outside, the sun is beginning to set over Giza, painting the Great Pyramid in long shadows the same way it has for millennia. Somewhere deep within, beyond the reach of human hands, the micro-drone hangs in still air, unseen in a chamber untouched since the world was young. And whatever waits inside is still waiting. The drone's feed may have gone dark, but the images it captured before the cutout, the faint markings, the chamber's unnatural geometry, and the object sitting in its center had already been cached on redundant storage. By nightfall, the still frames are spread across laptops in the tent, magnified, and enhanced. The pale walls awash in digital overlays as the team tries to make sense of what they're seeing. The markings under infrared are more numerous than initially thought. Many are faint to the point of invisibility, like impressions left in wet plaster that hardened over millennia. Others are sharper, etched into the surface with a precision that would be difficult even with modern tools. The first assumption is that they are simply degraded hieroglyphs, unfinished experimental or part of a symbolic mural, now long faded. But the epigraphers quickly disagree. Hieroglyphs are pictorial, says Dr. Samira Khalil, her finger tracing a projected line on the wall image. Even the abstract signs, the determinatives, have a clear functional role. These are something else. They are neither logograms nor phonograms. They appear almost mathematical. She is not alone in her assessment. Two of her colleagues note the repetitive use of a set of shapes, a circle intersected by 3 lines, a cluster of chevrons, and a spiral that is not quite symmetrical. They recur at irregular intervals but in consistent orientations, as if they follow a hidden grammar. By midnight, an uninvited guest has arrived in the form of a PDF sent by an anonymous academic contact. The file is an image overlay showing something impossible. The chamber markings perfectly aligned with carvings found at Göbekli Tepe, the Neolithic site in southeastern Turkey. Göbekli Tepe is over 7,000 years older than the Great Pyramid. At first, the comparison is dismissed as pareidolia, the human tendency to see patterns where none exist, but the more the overlays are adjusted, the more precise the match becomes. The chevrons, the asymmetrical spiral, even the intersected circle, all are there, carved into limestone pillars on the Turkish site long before writing as we know it existed. This would mean the chamber predates Khufu, Samira says, quietly. One of the Egyptologists laughs a short, nervous sound. The pyramid was built in the 4th dynasty, 26th century BCE. Göbekli Tepe is from the 10th millennium BCE. You're suggesting that someone built a chamber here thousands of years before the pyramid itself? I'm suggesting nothing, Samira replies. I'm only observing what's in front of us. The tension grows thicker as more comparisons emerge. In the British Museum's archives, a Sumerian cylinder seal depicts a motif startlingly close to the intersected circle, though in the seal it's flanked by 2 stylized animals facing away from it. In a Mesopotamian myth, that symbol is said to mark the entrance to the House of Knowledge, a legendary library said to be hidden far from the known world, guarded by a god who measures time in aeons. The name of that god? Thoth in the later Egyptian tradition, the keeper of wisdom, the inventor of writing, the scribe of the gods. In some versions of the myth, Thoth hid his greatest works in a place where no man may enter without first learning the signs. It's easy to see why the fringe theorists, the ones always lurking in the peripheries of academic digs, begin circling. Within hours, forums devoted to ancient mysteries are buzzing with speculation. Some call the markings proof of a lost global civilization. Others claim it's evidence that the pyramid builders merely inherited the site from a forgotten culture. The official team is careful not to fuel such fires. They release a bland statement about unique but still unidentified markings and stress that further study is needed. But inside the tent, the private conversation is anything but calm. There is a heated debate over whether to make the Göbekli Tepe connection public. Some insist it would destroy their credibility, that the parallels are coincidental. Others argue that concealing the data would only breed more dangerous rumors. The decision is made for them when sometime before dawn a single image appears online, not one of the released frames, but a shot. No one outside the core team was supposed to see. It shows a corner of the chamber. There, half in shadow, is what looks like a chest carved from the same seamless limestone as the walls. It is low, broad, and unadorned except for a single marking on its lid. The intersected circle cut deep and precise. No dust lies on the lid. The metadata tags on the leak are stripped, but the watermark in the lower left corner is faintly visible. It belongs to the drone's feed. The photo spreads within hours, appearing on conspiracy blogs, history forums, and finally mainstream news sites under headlines like "Secret Chamber in Pyramid contains unknown object." By midday, the dig site is surrounded by journalists. The Ministry of Antiquities issues a terse denial that any object has been found. The official story is that the chamber is empty except for sediment deposits. But in the tent, the mood is different. The engineers have examined the leaked image closely. The absence of dust on the lid is baffling. Even a sealed chamber should have micro-debris accumulation over thousands of years. And the marking under infrared is brighter than the surrounding stone, as if it reflects a different wavelength entirely. One of the older archaeologists breaks the silence. The myth says Thoth placed his house of knowledge in stone so it would outlast the flood and the fire. If that chest contains anything, Samira interrupts. We don't know it contains anything. The older man looks at her for a long time. We both know it does. The ministry's denial changes nothing. The photo is already viral, and private messages begin flooding the team's inboxes, some from serious scholars, others from treasure hunters, still others from people claiming to be descendants of the original builders, offering cryptic warnings. One message stands out. It contains no greeting, no signature. Just a single line. If you open it, you must be ready to close it again. The engineers continue to study the cached feed frame by frame, looking for any further details before the signal loss. In the final seconds before the blackout, there is a subtle shift in the chamber's lighting, not from the drone's LEDs, but from somewhere else, deeper in the darkness. It lasts only a fraction of a second, but it seems to come from the direction of the chest. The team says nothing about this to the press. Instead, they request additional equipment. Stronger transmitters, a second drone, and a rig capable of lowering a fiber optic camera directly into the chamber. If the first mission was to see the chamber, the second will be to approach the chest itself. Outside, the press grows impatient there. Headlines grow bolder, and the pyramid stands as it has for millennia, silent, implacable, its smooth north face catching the hard Egyptian sun. Inside, beneath hundreds of tons of stone, a sealed space waits its markings older than recorded history, its purpose unknown. And in one corner, a chest sits untouched, bearing a symbol from the time before language. The intersected circle. The first sign, the stone chest conspiracy. The image is now everywhere on news channels, in grainy print, on tabloids, dissected in frame-by-frame analyses on YouTube. The stone chest in the leaked photo has become a cultural Rorschach test. Each viewer sees what they want to see. Some compare it to known sarcophagi, pointing out the smooth lid and its beveled edges. Others note that it is carved from a single piece of granite, a feat requiring not just brute force, but a precision in cutting and polishing that even modern engineers struggle to replicate without diamond-tipped tools. Scale analysis, based on the drone's laser rangefinder, and the chamber's measurements puts the chest at roughly 2 meters in length, 1 meter wide, and just under a meter tall. Human-sized, large enough to hold a body, or perhaps more than one. Theories multiply like bacteria in a petri dish. A lost pharaoh's remains hidden away to foil tomb robbers. A cache of alien technology concealed in the pyramid since a prehistoric first contact. A star map to guide survivors of a cataclysm. Some even suggest it is an ancient power source, a stone battery that once lit the pyramid itself. In Cairo, the Ministry of Antiquities issues a formal statement calling the chest an optical illusion caused by irregular sediment. But in the days that follow, something strange happens. The dig site is locked down, fencing goes up, satellite. Trucks from news crews are ordered to park over a kilometre away. Access badges for the research team are revoked, replaced with government-issued ones that limit movement to specific sectors of the plateau. A polite but heavily armed security presence materializes around the pyramid, journalists trying to approach. The chamber's entry point are turned back by men in plain clothes. The ministry says it is to protect delicate research, but the silence is telling. Inside the team's private chat logs, some of which later leak, the mood shifts from excitement to unease. 2 engineers are abruptly flown back to Europe. A third, the drone operator, is reassigned to documentation work and denied entry to the control tent. Then the rumors begin. A stonemason who had been hired for reinforcement work claims that while sealing a micro-drone cable port, he overheard a conversation between 2 officials. It's not empty, then we seal it and forget it. A truck driver delivering equipment swears that he saw a small crate being loaded into an unmarked van at 3 in the morning. He says it was escorted by soldiers, not police, and driven toward a military airfield outside Cairo. The most unsettling account comes from a junior researcher who, in an encrypted message to a colleague, wrote, "They told us not to speak of what was seen. If we do, they said they would take our permits for life." That's the nice version. The others didn't come back. No official report confirms the crate, the removal of personnel, or the threat to workers, but the rumors harden into a single narrative. Something was found in the chest and it has been taken. The press spins this into a frenzy. On talk shows, historians and conspiracy theorists are paired off like boxers, trading jabs over what the artifact could be. One fringe guest claims to have seen classified photos of metallic objects inside the chest. Another insists the whole chamber is a hoax, a digitally fabricated stunt for funding. The ministry keeps repeating the same phrase: there is nothing to report. Yet behind the scenes, messages keep trickling in from people who were on site or claim to have been. Most are vague, contradictory, or too wild to take seriously. But then a single email arrives in the inbox of an investigative journalist covering the story. It is from someone who provides a verifiable employment history with the scanning project. Their credentials check out. Their name is withheld now, but the message is clear. I was there when they opened the lid. I saw what was inside. I will talk, but only on camera, in shadow. The journalist agrees to the terms. The meeting is set for a discreet location. The cameras prepared, the lighting rig adjusted, so that the subject will be nothing but a silhouette. When the whistleblower sits down, their voice is steady, but their hands are not. They glance once at the door before leaning forward. The journalist asks the first question. What was in the chest? The shadowed figure exhales slowly as if deciding whether to answer. And then they begin to speak. The whistleblower's warning. The silhouette on camera leans forward. The voice is electronically altered, but the weight in it is unmistakable. What was in the chest is not the question you should be asking. The real question is where it leads. They explain that before the chest was ever touched, the team ran a final sweep with ground-penetrating radar, a routine precaution before drilling. What came back on the monitor froze everyone in the control tent. Beneath the chest, invisible to the Muon tomography scans, was another void. Not horizontal like the chamber they'd just discovered, but sloping sharply downward, vanishing into bedrock. It was narrow, barely wide enough for a man to crawl, yet its walls reflected the radar, signaled differently from the surrounding limestone. It wasn't quarried stone. the whistleblower says. It was something denser, smoother, as if the builders wanted this shaft to last forever. They pause as if weighing what to reveal next. When the radar data was processed, further geometric anomalies appeared along the shaft's length, faint but distinct. Not random erosion, patterns. We had one of the epigraphers look at it in private, the whistleblower says. He went pale, said they looked like a star map, but not of the current sky. The coordinates, when overlaid with astronomical software, matched constellations as they would have appeared roughly 12,000 years ago, far earlier than Khufu, earlier than dynastic Egypt itself. This date sparks a quiet storm among those who hear it. That's the window when geologists say the last ice age ended. In alternative history circles, it's the period often tied to the Zep Tepi, the first time, a golden age in Egyptian myth, when gods walked among men bringing knowledge and order before vanishing. In most academic contexts, Zep Tepi is considered allegory, but the whistleblower says that after the star map correlation was made, two things happened in quick succession. First, all non-Egyptian personnel were told to hand over their research equipment, laptops, hard drives, even personal notebooks. Second, the site was sealed for structural safety assessment. No one from the original scan team was allowed back in. The whistleblower's voice dips even lower. One of the older Egyptian historians who'd been consulting on the project pulled me aside the night before I left. He told me there are prophecies, very old ones, that warn of the chamber that must not be opened, not until the stars above return to the same positions they held in the first time. According to him, that alignment will occur within the next decade. No, one knows what the ancient authors meant by must not be opened. Was it a warning, a seal against something dangerous, or simply a superstition that survived through oral tradition? But what unsettles the historian and now the journalist is that whoever built the shaft knew the sky well enough to encode a celestial clock into the very geometry of the pyramid's hidden architecture. If the whistleblower's account is true, then we are standing on the threshold of whatever the builders intended to happen when that clock strikes zero. As the interview winds down, the camera lingers on the shadowed figure. The voice now, almost a whisper, delivers one final line. They're not afraid of what's inside the chest. They're afraid of what's below it. The screen cuts to black. The clockwork of the gods, the night sky over Giza, has changed countless times in the 4,500 years since Khufu's pyramid first cut its silhouette against the horizon. Stars wheel, constellations drift, entire celestial patterns shift their place over centuries, driven by a slow and inexorable force, the precession of the equinoxes. To the ancient Egyptians, the stars were not simply decoration. They were a calendar, a code, and a promise. And if the whistleblower's claims are true, then the hidden chamber's construction may have been dictated not by the life of a king, but by the life cycle of the heavens themselves. We begin with Orion's belt, 3 stars in a near-perfect line mirrored almost exactly by the layout of the Giza pyramids. Modern software confirms it. In 10,500 BC, the belt's alignment with the Nile matched the pyramid's arrangement with uncanny precision. Mainstream archaeologists call it coincidence. Alternative historians call it a blueprint written in the sky, but the alignments are not limited to Orion. Astronomers chart the slow wobble of Earth's axis, a 26,000-year cycle that causes the stars to rise and set in different positions over millennia. This precession moves the background of the night sky like the turning of a great cosmic gear. And according to the data, that gear is about to click into a familiar position, one last seen at the tail end of the last ice age. Overlay after overlay reveals the same convergence, the rising of Sirius over the apex of the Great Pyramid, the belt of Orion in its first-time alignment with the Nile, and the culmination of the Pleiades at the meridian, all within a narrow window in the next decade. It's as if the pyramid isn't just a monument, but a precision instrument tracking not years or centuries, but entire ages. What chills the researchers isn't just the timing, it's the reach of this pattern. When we map similar star alignments against other ancient sites, Teotihuacan in Mexico, Göbekli Tepe in Turkey, Nan Madol in Micronesia, we see the same constellations embedded in stone. The distances between these sites trace arcs along Earth's circumference that correspond to whole number fractions of the planet's total measure, as if the builders were working from a shared planetary blueprint. This is not the work of cultures isolated by oceans and millennia. This suggests coordination, or at the very least the survival of a common knowledge system from a time before recorded history. The implications are staggering. Either our ancestors were far more advanced and interconnected than we've been willing to believe, or they were following instructions left by someone or something else, and that returns us to the prophecy. If the chamber and its descending shaft are truly keyed to a celestial alignment that comes only once every 12 millennia, then what is it designed to do when that moment arrives? The word tomb feels too small, too mundane. What if it is not a resting place at all, but a timer? A device set to mark the return of a particular sky, a particular age, and perhaps a particular presence. The camera drifts over the plateau at night. The pyramid looms black against a wash of silver stars. Slowly, one brilliant point of light rises from the eastern horizon, climbing until it hovers directly above the apex. The star hangs there for a long moment, as if weighing the silence below. Cut to black. The desert holds its breath. The sun sets over Giza in a blaze of copper, and blood shadows stretching like dark fingers across the sand. From the air, the plateau becomes a geometric island in a golden sea, the Great Pyramid at its heart, immutable, unblinking. The drone's camera drifts higher and higher until the monuments dissolve into the rolling expanse of the Sahara. No roads, no rivers, just a horizon swallowed by silence. The voiceover cuts through the stillness. 4.5 millennia. It has waited. We may not be ready for what it's counting down to. From the orbital view, the desert becomes an ocean of shifting light and shadow dunes frozen in place like waves turned to stone. The vastness is humbling, and it hides its secrets well, but not from everything. The image shifts to high-contrast infrared, the world now rendered in ghostly monochrome. The cities vanish, the dunes flatten to pale shapes, and there, at the coordinates of the Great Pyramid, a single pulse of heat blooms against the cold geometry of stone. It is faint, but steady. Engineers confirm it is not solar heat trapped from the day, nor a reflection, nor equipment left behind. It emanates from deep within, directly from the location of the newly discovered chamber. The scale overlay places the source no larger than the stone chest itself. The narrator's voice drops to a near whisper. Stone does not stay warm for 4,000 years, unless something keeps it that way. The frame freezes on the glow, surrounded by total black. For a moment, there is only silence. Then the faintest sound, like the slow turning of a mechanism almost too low to register. Cut to black title card, to be continued.